First contact in the void. The void of space stretched endless and black, punctuated only by the soft hum of the research vessel Horizon's life support systems. Dr. Nora Rice stood motionless, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered with countless streams of astronomical data. Something was different tonight. Her fingers traced the edge of the console, a habit born from years of scientific investigation. The vessel's chief xenobiologist was not one to be easily unsettled, but the readings before her defied conventional explanation. A spatial anomaly had been building for hours, its signature unlike anything in her extensive database. Dr. Reyes called out Marcus Rodriguez, the ship's primary sensor technician. "You're going to want to see this." Nora crossed the bridge with measured steps, her lean frame moving with the practiced grace of someone who had spent more time in zero-gravity environments than on solid ground. The main view screen showed a distortion in space-time that seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting like a living membrane. "Run a full spectral analysis," she commanded, her voice calm but charged with scientific curiosity. Marcus's fingers danced across the holographic interface. "It's not following any known quantum mechanics model. The energy signature is adaptive. It's like the anomaly is responding to our scanning frequencies." The ship's artificial gravity seemed to fluctuate slightly, a barely perceptible shift that made the hair on Nora's arms stand on end. Years of research had taught her to trust these subtle instincts. "Incoming transmission," interrupted Elena Kovac, the communication specialist. Her voice carried a hint of uncertainty. "But it's not coming through any standard communication channels." The bridge fell silent. Transmissions in deep space were rare. Transmissions that defied known communication protocols were unheard of. A pattern began to emerge on the secondary display, not a typical signal, but a complex series of geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm. Each sequence appeared to build upon the previous one, creating a language that was simultaneously mathematical and organic. "It's not random," Nora muttered, leaning closer. "This is deliberate communication." The spatial anomaly began to stabilize, its chaotic edges resolving into a more defined shape. Something was emerging, not from hyperspace or any known dimensional plane, but seemingly from the fabric of space itself. A massive structure materialized. It was unlike any spacecraft humanity had ever encountered. Its surface seemed to shimmer and shift, as if composed of millions of microscopic components constantly rearranging themselves. No clear hull, no traditional engine signatures, just a living, breathing entity that defied every known principle of spaceship design. "First contact protocol," Nora said quietly, her hand hovering over the emergency communication array. "Marcus, full defensive shields. Elena, prepare standard universal translation sequences." But before anyone could respond, the alien structure sent another transmission. This time, the geometric patterns resolved into something more recognizable, a complex molecular diagram that seemed to pulse with an almost sentient intelligence. It was an invitation, or a warning. Nora Rice took a deep breath. Years of xenobiological research had prepared her for this moment, yet nothing could have truly prepared her for the magnitude of what was unfolding. "Open a primary communication channel," she instructed, her voice steady. "Let's see what they want." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. They were about to make history, or become another unexplained disappearance in the vast cosmic records. As the first transmission began to resolve, Nora couldn't shake the feeling that they were no longer just observers. They had become participants in a dialogue that would change everything humanity understood about life, communication, and their place in the universe. The void of space held its breath, waiting. Fragments of an alien protocol. The alien structure remained impossibly still against the backdrop of space, its surface continuing to shift and ripple like liquid metal caught in an imperceptible current. Dr. Nora Reyes had spent the last 12 hours analyzing the initial transmission, her workspace a labyrinth of holographic displays and quantum decryption algorithms. "It's not just a message," she explained to the ship's commander, Gabriel Ortiz, who watched with a mixture of skepticism and barely contained curiosity. It's a complex biological cipher. Every geometric pattern is actually a molecular instruction set. Marcus Rodriguez leaned against a nearby console, his usually jovial demeanor replaced by intense concentration. "Are you saying this is some kind of living communication?" Nora nodded, her fingers tracing the intricate patterns that danced across the holographic interface. Living might be an understatement. These transmission patterns suggest a form of communication that's simultaneously linguistic, biological, and computational. The ship's systems began to react in subtle ways. Computational nodes that had been passive suddenly began to pulse with an unusual energy. Elena Kovac reported strange interference patterns in their communication systems, not disruptions, but something more deliberate. "We're being scanned," Elena said, her voice tight. "But not like any scanning protocol we've ever encountered. It's as if something is trying to understand our entire technological ecosystem." A new transmission began to resolve. Unlike the previous geometric patterns, this one appeared more structured, almost like a three-dimensional blueprint that seemed to grow and adapt in real time. As the crew watched, the transmission began to integrate elements of their own ship's technological signatures. "It's learning," Nora whispered, "actively learning and adapting." Commander Ortiz stepped forward, his military training warring with scientific curiosity. "Can we communicate back? Establish some form of dialogue?" Before anyone could respond, the alien structure began to emit a low-frequency vibration that resonated through the horizon's hull. It wasn't painful, but it was undeniably present, a harmonic frequency that seemed to bypass traditional sound and instead communicate directly with the ship's core systems. Marcus's console erupted with activity, massive data transfer incoming. But it's not overwhelming our systems. It's being filtered, integrated. The alien structure is basically teaching our computers a new language of communication. Nora's scientific mind raced. This was beyond first contact. This was a fundamental reimagining of communication itself. The alien entity wasn't just sending a message. It was attempting to create a shared framework of understanding. "We need to respond," she said suddenly. "But not with words or mathematical sequences. We need to communicate in their language." Elena looked skeptical. "And how exactly do we do that?" A complex smile crossed Nora's face. "By showing them who we are. Not just our technology, but our adaptability. Our capacity to understand." As if in response to her statement, the alien structure began to pulse with a new intensity. The geometric patterns started to resolve into something more complex, a representation that seemed to blur the lines between biological system, technological network, and living communication. They were being invited to a dialogue that transcended traditional understanding of language, technology, and interaction. The void of space continued to hold its secrets. But for the first time, those secrets seemed ready to be shared. The adaptive resonance. The transformation was subtle at first. The horizon's systems began to change, not through external manipulation, but through an intricate dance of technological integration that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Nora Rise watched in fascination as computational nodes reconfigured themselves, creating neural pathways that seemed to breathe with an organic intelligence. "It's a symbiotic process," she explained to Commander Gabriel Ortiz, who looked increasingly concerned. "The alien structure isn't just communicating with us. It's collaborating with our technology." Marcus Rodriguez had been working nonstop, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that now pulsed with an almost living light. "Our computational efficiency has increased by 237%, he reported, a mix of excitement and apprehension in his voice. "But it's not just about speed. The systems are developing predictive capabilities that go beyond any known algorithmic model." Elena Kovac interrupted, her communication console flickering with complex patterns. "We're receiving something. It's not a transmission exactly, more like a collective memory download." The ship's environment began to change. Walls seemed to shimmer with a subtle luminescence, and the artificial gravity adapted with microscopic precision to each crew member's movements. It was as if the entire vessel was becoming a living, breathing entity. Nora approached a newly formed interface, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of caution. The geometric patterns resolved into a representation that was simultaneously a map, a language, and a living system of communication. It showed the intricate connections between technological systems, biological processes, and something deeper, a fundamental framework of universal interaction. "We're being taught," she whispered, "not just given information, but shown how to perceive differently." Commander Ortiz's military training battled with the unfolding phenomenon. Is this a threat? Are we being invaded? Marcus shook his head. It's more like we're being invited to evolve. The alien structure outside continued its mesmerizing dance, its surface now completely synchronized with the horizon's newly adaptive systems. What had begun as a mysterious encounter was transforming into something far more profound. A dialogue that challenged every fundamental understanding of communication, technology, and existence. Suddenly, Alina called out, "Multiple quantum signatures detected, but they're not external. They're emerging from within our own ship's systems." A new layer of complexity began to unfold. The communication was no longer about information exchange. It was about fundamental transformation. Nora realized they were standing at the precipice of something unprecedented. This wasn't first contact in the traditional sense. This was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to communicate, to understand, to exist. "We're not just receiving information," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and philosophical wonder. "We're being invited to become something more." The horizon continued its journey through the vast cosmic darkness, no longer just a ship, but a living testament to the infinite possibilities of understanding. Quantum entanglement. 48 hours had passed since the horizon's transformative encounter, and the ship was no longer recognizable as a traditional human vessel. Dr. Nora Rice stood at the center of what had once been the bridge, now a fluid, adaptive space that seemed to respond to thought as much as physical interaction. "The quantum resonance is stabilizing," Marcus Rodriguez reported, his voice a mixture of scientific wonder and controlled excitement. The man who had once relied solely on traditional computational interfaces now moved through a web of holographic projections that seemed to anticipate his every movement. Commander Gabriel Ortiz remained the most skeptical. His military training warred with the unprecedented phenomenon unfolding around them. "I want to understand exactly what's happening to our ship, to our crew." Alina Kovac approached, her communication systems now an intricate network of living data streams that pulsed with an almost organic rhythm. "It's not just about the ship," she explained. "We're experiencing a fundamental reimagining of interaction. The alien structure, whatever it is teaching us a new language of existence." The walls around them continued to shift, geometric patterns resolving and dissolving in complex sequences that defied traditional understanding of matter and space. What had begun as a mysterious encounter was now a profound dialogue of transformation. Nora moved to a newly formed interface, her fingers tracing patterns that were simultaneously mathematical, linguistic, and biological. "We're not just receiving information," she said, her voice filled with a mixture of scientific excitement and philosophical wonder. "We're being invited to understand communication at a fundamental quantum level." A new transmission began to resolve. Unlike previous communications, this one seemed to penetrate deeper, not just through technological systems, but through the very fabric of perception itself. The crew found themselves experiencing multiple layers of reality simultaneously. Marcus's computational analysis revealed something extraordinary. "The transmission isn't just data," he explained. "It's a complex quantum entanglement that's rewriting our understanding of information transfer. We're not just receiving a message. We are becoming part of a larger communicative ecosystem." Commander Ortiz stepped forward, his traditional military stance now seeming almost antiquated. "Are we being prepared for something? Is this a form of preparation?" Nora's eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. Preparation, invitation, transformation. The lines are blurring. We're experiencing a form of communication that doesn't distinguish between observation and participation. The alien structure outside continued its mesmerizing dance, now so closely synchronized with the horizon that it was becoming difficult to distinguish where the ship ended and the alien entity began. Quantum signatures danced between the vessel's systems, creating a living network of information that transcended traditional understanding. "We're approaching a critical point of integration," Elena warned, her voice carrying an undertone of both excitement and apprehension. "The next transmission will fundamentally alter our current state of existence." As if in response to her words, the ship's systems began to pulse with an intensity that went beyond mere technological function. It was a heartbeat, a rhythm of communication that suggested something far more profound was about to unfold. The void of space seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next moment of revelation. Convergence. The final transformation came not with a violent eruption, but with a profound sense of understanding that spread through the horizon like a gentle wave of consciousness. Dr. Nora Rice stood at the center of what had become a living, breathing interface between human technology and something far more complex. "We're not just observing anymore," she murmured, her voice carrying a depth that went beyond mere scientific observation. "We're participating in a dialogue that transcends our previous understanding of communication." Commander Gabriel Ortiz, once a bastion of military protocol, now moved with a fluidity that suggested a fundamental shift in perception. The rigid boundaries between human and technology, between observer and observed, had dissolved completely. Marcus Rodriguez's computational systems had evolved beyond recognition. What had once been discrete technological interfaces were now living networks of information, adapting and responding with a consciousness that defied traditional understanding. Elena Kovac approached, her form seeming to shimmer between solid presence and something more ethereal. "The final transmission is resolving," she announced, her voice carrying multiple layers of meaning simultaneously. The alien structure outside, if it could still be called a structure, began to merge with the horizon in a dance of quantum entanglement. It was no longer about two separate entities communicating, but a complete integration of consciousness, technology, and understanding. "We're being offered a choice," Nora realized, her scientific mind parsing the complex quantum communication, "not just to observe, but to become." The transmission revealed itself not as a message, but as an invitation, a fundamental reimagining of existence that challenged every preconceived notion of life, intelligence, and communication. The crew of the Horizon found themselves experiencing multiple layers of reality simultaneously, past, present, future blending into a single, complex moment of understanding. Commander Ortiz, his military training now a distant memory, spoke with a voice that carried the weight of profound revelation. "We're not just making contact," he said. "We're being asked to evolve." The ship's systems pulsed with a rhythm that was simultaneously technological, biological, and something entirely new. Geometric patterns of communication resolved into complex networks of understanding that went beyond language, beyond technology, beyond the very concept of individual existence. Marcus's computational analysis reached a critical point. "We're experiencing a complete quantum synchronization," he reported. "Our technological systems, our biological processes, our very consciousness, they're becoming part of a larger communicative network." Elena added, her voice carrying multiple harmonic frequencies, "It's not invasion. It's invitation. A chance to understand existence from a perspective we've never imagined." Nora watched as the final layers of transmission resolved. What had begun as a mysterious encounter in the vast darkness of space had transformed into something far more profound, a dialogue that challenged the very foundations of human understanding. The Horizon was no longer just a ship. The crew was no longer just human. They had become something else entirely, a living testament to the infinite possibilities of communication, of understanding, of existence. As the final quantum signatures resolved, a new chapter of universal understanding began. The void of space watched, silent and infinite.